نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. ولما رأى المؤمنون الأحزاب قالوا هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله وصدق الله ورسوله وما زادهم إلا إيمانا وتسليما. من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. ليجزي الله الصادقين بصدقهم ويعذب المنافقين إن شاء أو يتوب عليهم إن الله كان غفورا رحيما. ورد الله الذين كفروا بغيظهم لم ينالوا خيرا وكفى الله المؤمنين القتال وكان الله قويا عزيزا. وأنزل الذين ظاهروهم من أهل الكتاب من صياصيهم وقذف في قلوبهم الرعب فريقا تقتلون وتأسرون فريقا. وأورثكم أرضهم وديارهم وأموالهم وأرضا لم تطئوها وكان الله على كل شيء قديرا. Respectful honorable friends, in the verses that have been recited, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues with making the mention of certain aspects of the battle of Ahzaab as well as that of the Banu Qurayza. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the opening verse, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسْنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. This is a general principle, not just at the time of the Ahzab and the Khandaq, but at all times. And that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there is لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. But there is definitely an excellent example for you in Allah's Rasul. And for who? لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ, for the one who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ, and the last day. وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا, and who remembers Allah ta'ala abundantly. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions here that in Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam did the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala find the perfect example, the Uswatun Hasanah. And here specifically in the battle of Ahzab, in the manner in which Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam stood his ground and faced the opposition with determination. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not retreat. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not have any doubts in the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the manner in which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam stood ground, in that itself there is uswatun hasana, there is the ideal example for people in Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And although this was for those who were there at the time, but the fact that Allah Ta'ala mentions that those who يَرْجُ اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ, and who وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Three qualities Allah Ta'ala mentions, means those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is not necessarily just the Sahaba, it is for those who, all believers should have these qualities. And وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ, the last day, and who also remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly. In them, this quality should be found, that they find in Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam the uswatun hasana, the perfect example. And this is true that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept in Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the uswatun hasana. That in Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will those who fear Allah ta'ala, those who believe in akhirat, and those who remember Allah abundantly, they will always find an excellent example in Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Adopting the uswa hasana of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam means that those things that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to uphold, all those things that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has brought, and to stay away from those things that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has prohibited. مَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. To uphold what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to implement what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has brought, and abstain from those things that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has prevented from. And the hukam, the ruling regarding this is that those things that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has commanded or has advocated to stay away from, which are wajib, to follow that is also wajib. And those things to abstain from, or those things to do, which are mustahab, to carry out that is also mustahab. So in that, which means that a person will not be sinful if a person does not abstain from those things to abstain from which is mustahab. Or a person does not carry out those things which the command is of mustahab, and there as well a person will not be sinful. And where the command to do something is wujub, wajib, to carry it out will be wajib, implement it will be wajib, to abstain from it is wajib, then the person needs to stay away from it. As Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, as Allah ta'ala has sent Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a guide to mankind till the day of Qiyamah. So for that, every aspect of the life of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam has to be exemplary. And we are fortunate as well that the life of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam is in front of us. And here as well, the uswatul hasana Allah ta'ala mentions about is how Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam stood ground. Meaning Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is what? Steadfastness. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's character is so unique that it wasn't that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam or his character, his actions, these only changed after Nabuwwat. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam possessed a good character and had goodness in him prior to Nabuwwat as well. So even before Nabuwwat, if a person wanted a uswatul hasana, they would have found that in Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, that is how his character was, how his nature was. Then after Nabuwwat, all the more it changed because of the guidance that was granted to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam by Allah Ta'ala. And the fact that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whatever Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it through what? Through the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it through what? Through the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which shows us that the path that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had taken, or that which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the path that the Nabi Kareem wanted the Ummah to take, was not just from his own accord, but was from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown to Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala. So it shows that that is the guided path. And in our lives as well, if we want that we acquire the best of deen, we acquire all the barakat, the nur of deen, then that will only come about in the uswa of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, meaning in following the example of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Meaning that in life a person wants what? A person needs an example. You need somebody that you can follow. And here the person to follow, Allah Ta'ala says, is Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. As in him is an excellent example. And because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This we have the Quran is preserved and it will remain preserved till the day of Qiyamah. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. So Allah Ta'ala has taken upon him to protect the Quran till the day of Qiyamah, in all forms, meaning there's a calligraphy, the writing of it, the words as well as the tafseer, and everything will be maintained. Why? Because it is a source of hidayat till the day of Qiyamah. The Torah and Injil, that wasn't the case, because it wasn't to remain till the day of Qiyamah. The Quran is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has maintained it. And because Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam has been appointed as a uswatul hasana, as an example for mankind, and that to the perfect example. So the ta'limat, the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, these have also been maintained, these have also been protected. And Allah Ta'ala has created the muhaddiseen who have maintained the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which any aspect of our lives, as on Wednesday I mentioned, with regard to financial side, the ta'aleem of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those words, and during the times that we are in, the crisis which we say. If you look at the ta'aleemat of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find, look, there is salvation in that, there is a solution in these. And not only that, but in every aspect of our life. And this only a person will appreciate this when a person has the understanding of deen. When a person brings in their life the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, and tries to bring these aspects in every aspect of our life, that's when the person will find that, look, there is so much ease and comfort. It is when we move away from the uswatul hasana, the way shown to us by Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that's when complications come about. And those complications have come about by ourselves. For instance, with regards to the masjid, how we should run the masjid, how we should supposed to do the ibadat of Allah Ta'ala. Again, uswatul hasana is in Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Follow that, you will be successful and there will be ease. When our nikah takes place as well, follow the uswa hasana of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, the nikah will also be easy and the nikah will also be simple. Janazah takes place, follow the uswa hasana of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that will be also an easy and simple affair. Birth of a child, again follow the uswa of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Put foot into transaction and business, follow the uswa of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. Any aspect of our lives, become a husband, uswatul hasana. Become a father, uswatul hasana. So wherever we want, the prime and the first person that we should look at for an example is Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then research that topic itself, that how did Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam conduct himself, or what is the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam during these occasions. And if you are unable to do so, then we should ask the ulama to teach us that, look, there is a janazah in the family, what should we do next? How should we do in the ghusl? So the ghusl and everything related to the ghusl is according to the sunnah. Burial time now. What is the sunnah method? So the burial is also according to the sunnah. Yes, one thing is for sure, that there will be differences as well, difference in the form of different circumstances. By circumstances we mean with regard to country, for instance. As we have two types of graves, you have the lahad and you have the sit, which is the box type that we have here. And then you have the lahad, which is in the cut out on the side. Both are acceptable indeed, and both are sunnah. Although Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the lahad, but the lahad form of grave is not utilized here in this country. And the reason for that is because the soil won't allow it. Soil doesn't allow it. If you are going to adopt for that type of cover, the soil will just sink in onto the mayyit. As it is now, we have the concrete slabs inside, because this is the reason for it. So there will be, of course, changes that will come about because of circumstances or ways of doing things. Now, for example, in the past they used to use, physically themselves use spade and that to dig up the grave, and now we have a JCB to help it. It doesn't mean that now this is something which is what against the sunnah. The Sahaba and them didn't have these facilities, so it should be hand digged and that. No, this is different. So there will be changes that come about. But the Shari'i ta'limat of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, the methodology taught to us by Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the principles laid out by Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala wasallam, this is what we should maintain and uphold. Same as well with regard to when we enter into business as well. and any other aspect of our life. So there will be those things, as I mentioned to you, which are not impermissible in deen. So you are allowed to do those things. And there are those other things wherein either it's a case of we can do this or we can just do that which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. So what should we adopt? And that is what Allah Ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. From both these options, if you adopt that which Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had done at that time, although it may not be wajib upon you to follow that, but in what Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself had done, or what Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had instructed, in that you will find the uswatun hasana. And then as well as the ulama are what? The other warathatul anbiya. The ulama warathatul anbiya. They are the heirs of the anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. In what? In ilm deen. So they are the ones who have understood the uswa of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and it is in them that we are able to, in the ulama rabbaniyin, that we are also able to find the uswa hasana of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And specifically with regards to under what circumstances to make amal and to follow what, in which manner. For instance, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's habit was always what? To remove the shoes and eat. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would sit on the ground and eat. So this is the sunnah way of eating. And the other way of eating is what? That you sit on a table and chair. You sit on a table and chair and eat. So in Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam we have the uswatul hasana of sitting on the floor and eating. But Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not say that it is haram to sit on a table and chair. And because that is something which Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has not said that it is haram, it's not impermissible. So if there is somebody who is unable to sit on the ground and eat because of physical needs and that, it will be allowed and permissible for them to sit on the table and chair and eat. But just in general for us, when we have that opportunity, that look, what do we want? Which method do we want to adopt in our homes? Do we want to have a dining table or do we want to use the dasarkhan? So this is an option that we have. The uswatul hasana is in what? The way of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Ta'ala Sallam. That is where you have the choice. Wherever you have the choice of which you can adopt both. Which should we adopt? Adopt the way of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But where there is a need and a necessity, adopt this as well. On one occasion, Mufti Shafi Rahmatullah Ali was with either Mufti Taqi Usmani or some others, and they were traveling. And while they were traveling, they came to a restaurant. Time for food there. So when the time of food came, you go to a restaurant, what do you find? The restaurant is going to be table and chairs. It's going to be table and chairs. So what did he do? He sat where? On the table and chair. Mufti Azam Pakistan sat on the table and chair. And he said that, look, this is also sunnah. Why? Because at this moment in time, we're in a restaurant here, and everybody sat on table and chairs. If we now going to go and do what in the restaurant itself, put the dasarkhan down and say, no, we're going to insist and we're going to sit on the floor and that. In doing so, we are going to do what? We're going to actually degrade the sunnah of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and make it a means of a mockery. And to do that itself is also sinful. That we have become the means of that. Why? Because these are the facilities here, and this isn't something that is contrary or something that is haram either. So on that basis, to sit on here is also something that is not incorrect. And then when you sit on the table, you follow all the other sunnahs of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam after all. You read the dua, you read with your hands, you read with your right hand, and whatever else, all the other sunnahs of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, all of these things can still be carried out and implemented accordingly. And nowadays you do have those who find it difficult to sit on the floor physically because they can't sit on the floor. So they sit on the table, so that will not be against the uswa of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Ta'ala Sallam. But yes, when we do have this type of opportunity, when we do have this, that what should we adopt in our homes, in our lives, and that always use the uswatul hasana. And one example I've been given regularly as well is nikah, for example, and also mayyit as well, qabristan as well, the burial how it should be, the tadfeen how it should be, the ghusl how it should be, because a lot of customs and a lot of wrong practices come about in it because we move away from the uswatul hasana. the way we decorate our graves, the type of things we put on the graves, and the type of flowers and all the stuff that we do on the graves. That is because we have moved away from the uswatul hasana. And if you follow the uswatul hasana, it is simple, it is straightforward. We don't like things which are simple and straightforward, isn't it? We like things which are interesting and fancy. Now, for instance, look at Jannatul Baqi. If our Qabristan was like Jannatul Baqi, then I'm sure a lot of people who do spend a lot of time in the Qabristan will not want to go to the Qabristan. Why? Because there will be nothing appealing to look at. There would be much appealing there. But now you go to the Qabristan, there's a lot of appealing things to look at. Each grave is like a garden on its own. Eventually you might have people going around from the council awarding people for the best kept grave as well. And the Muslims will probably win. Because it seems as it is, there's already competition there that who can fill up the grave with as many and as much flowers and decorations and lights, and who can have the best tombstone. Again, moving away from the uswa hasana, the most expensive and the most elaborate tombstone. And it is so unfortunate that you sometimes wonder when you look at the non-Muslims as well, that who learned who from who. Because the lights that are there, the non-Muslims have those lights as well now. So who learned what from who? And there should be a difference. Any non-Muslim going past should know, look, this is the non-Muslim grave side and this is the Muslim side. Whereas now if you look at it, the Muslim side, you look at that, you'll be confused that it seems that this is a mixed graveyard, because of all the tombstones. And not only that difference, but even the wordings on the tombstones are very similar to that which we have taken from the trend of the non-Muslims. Of the type of things that they write on it is what we have written on it as well. And then there is the kalima la ilaha illallah written on it. But the tombstone doesn't go in Jannah. The tombstone doesn't need iman that you write la ilaha illallah on the tombstone, isn't it? So why have that and some ashar and poetry and written on it, and the kalima la ilaha illallah written on it, the three quls written on a gravestone, where it's going to be exposed to the various elements and that. There's absolutely no need of these type of things. Why? Because we do this is because we moved away from the uswatul hasana. And when we maintain the uswatul hasana, it may not look appealing to people. It may not be fancy, but there will be khair and barakat in it. There will always be khair and barakat in it. No matter what the temptation may be, but there is always benefit for us in the uswatul hasana. And who is that for? Which shows that who will adopt the path of Nabi Kareem system? Those who liman kana yarjullaha, those who have fear, those who yarjullah, those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who kan yarjullah wal yawm al-akhir, and those who fear the last day, wa dhakara Allah kathira, and those who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, they will follow Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam in all their affairs. And those who are not worried about the akhirat and these things, then they'll just do whatever they want to. And put all sorts of things on the graves, all sorts of ways of doing the nikahs and all the sorts of ways in general, in every aspect of our lives. So if we want khair and barakat, we should follow the uswatul hasana. The example that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given us, either that which practically Nabi Kareem gave us, or that which Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam verbally instructed to the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala. And when we do read upon these things, study these things, you'll always find that this is the decisions that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam made through the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those which are most natural as well, are those which are most easy as well and comfortable as well. That they are not those which are difficult to accept. Yes, it does become difficult to accept when norms and customs and innovations, when these overpower our aqal and these overpower our lives, yes, then it becomes difficult for us to understand the uswatul hasana. And then what happens is either we ignore them or we then try and somehow prove or justify the ways and the customs that we are carrying out, just to try and prove the point or want to be able to follow it. As I mentioned to you not long ago, the last week's Jummah also, that those who decorate the graves with so many flowers and plants, take what? The incident of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam put a twig on 2 graves. And as I mentioned last week as well, this was exclusive. Nabi sallallahu did that on just 2 specific graves, and Nabi put a twig on it. And that's it. We just take that to justify us putting so many flowers and so many different things on our graves. Whereas, how can you term that to be sunnah? And if you do want to follow it, then just put a twig. Because that is all Nabi sallallahu just put a twig, then put a twig only. If you want to follow the sunnah, and then just put a twig on it and leave it to that. But here, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't put all the different types of flowers that are there, and the fake flowers as well. Isn't it? The fake flowers don't do the tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they're not going to ease anybody from the azab of the qabr either, because Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam put a live, a living, proper twig that was there. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam didn't put a plastic twig on the grave. So putting plastic stuff there, that's not following the sunnah. It's all there for show and decoration, that's all it is. So uswatun hasana, we'll find that in Nabi Kareem. But as I said, people try to justify these type of things. All sort of events that we have and things that we go on in our life, we just try and justify it somehow or the other. As I said, we are just about show and khana pina, celebration and enjoyment and these things. So wherever we can get an opportunity to try and do these type of things, then all the more we want to do these things. And in the sunnah, there's simplicity in the sunnah. So who actually enjoys simplicity? People don't like simplicity. But those who yarju Allah wal yawm al-akhir wa dhakar Allah kathira will always take Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to be the uswatun hasana. Carrying on, Allah Ta'ala mentioned this so that to show us that how Nabi was steadfast in the Ahzaab. وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ قالوا هذا ما وعدنا الله ورسوله وصدق الله ورسوله وما زادهم إلا إيمانا وتسليما. And here Allah Ta'ala shows that look, at the time of the Ahzab, the battle of Ahzab, unlike the munafiqeen, look at the believers, that they were not expecting that the opposition is going to be of what it was. But it turned out that when they went there, they found that it wasn't just the mushrikeen of Makkah, but it was all the other tribes that had joined with the mushrikeen of Makkah. And along with them, the Banu Nazir, the Banu Qurayza from Medina had also joined with them, and they found themselves against an army of 10 to 12,000. So when the believers, mu'min, saw that, what happened at that time? They didn't start waving, and the iman getting weak then, they didn't start running away from there. And they didn't feel that, look, we've been deceived here. That we were not told that the army is going to be, the battle is going to be against such a huge army. But instead, what did they say? Allah says that وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ. When the mu'mineen saw the armies, what did they say? قَالُوا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. This, in this type of occasion, this is what Allah and His Rasul have promised us. And وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Allah and His Rasul has spoken the truth. This is what they said. Meaning that this type of test that has come in front of us, that there were only 3,000 and the opposition were 10 to 12,000, it was a big test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So immediately they understood that, look, this is that which Allah and His Rasul have already promised us, that a time is going to come when you're going to be put to a test. And what is that? مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. See, the Ibn Abbas mentions, it is where Allah Ta'ala mentions that أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ وَلَمَّا يَأْتِكُمْ مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ خَلَوْا مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ مَسَّتْهُمُ الْبَأْسَاءُ وَالضَّرَّاءُ وَزُلْزِلُوا حَتَّى يَقُولَ الرَّسُولُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. That مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ refers to this verse of Surah Baqarah. That do you think that you will enter into Jannah and no trial and tribulation, hardship and difficulty has come to you as it did come to those prior to you? This verse of Surah Baqarah. So Ibn Abbas says that this is that which ma wa'adana Allah wa rasuluhu. That this is something that had already been promised to us. That Jannah is not going to come for free. Jannah is not going to come so easily. You're going to be put to test, and we are now seeing this as this is. So it wasn't the case of like the munafiqeen. They turned around and said, no. The munafiqeen who said Allah and His Rasul have deceived us. That is what they claimed. But the believers didn't say that. This is not what we were expecting here. And how are we going to overcome this? But they said, no, this is that huge test that had already been foretold to us. And وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. And the munafiqeen, they made excuses to leave the battle. But Allah says, وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. That when they saw the army, they then increased in iman and taslima, submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Instead of faltering in these circumstances, and instead of becoming weak, Allah ta'ala says that it strengthened the iman. It increased the iman rather. So a believer is such that when trials and tribulation comes their way, it strengthens the iman even more. And not when times are difficult, what do? You come out of the fold of Islam. When times are difficult, you leave Islam and put that aside. Like had happened when 9/11 happened. There were so many tests upon Muslims, hardship and difficulties. Muslims traveling here and there became difficult. So what happened? There were so many who had beards, who removed their beards. There were those who in the niqab, hijab, who removed their hijab. There were those who called Yusuf, who changed their name to Joseph. And those who had Muslim names, Muhammad became Mo. Try to change their names just so that what people do not easily recognize them to be Muslims. This is a small, very small test of what? Maybe you pulled aside at the airport. You may be interrogated for a few hours and you troubled for a few hours, asked a few questions. That is nothing at all compared to the real tests that those who have Iman were put through. But because of those type of tests, that's it. We want to now show ourselves that we are not Muslims. Or that we are what? Moderate. We are moderate. And remember, in the eyes of those who are not Muslims, a non-practicing Muslim is a moderate Muslim. And a practicing Muslim is an extremist. And Allah knows best what an extremist actually is in them. Because in Islam as well, there are those that are those who are extremists in deen. And deen and Shariat has said, look, they should be on the other side, they are extreme. So Islam doesn't allow extremists in deen. Who is a moderate Muslim? A moderate Muslim is a true Muslim. Why? Because there is moderation in our deen anyway. So a person who does follow deen the way it is automatically a moderate Muslim. But in the eyes of those who are non-Muslims, for them, that person is an extremist. And the ones who have no Islam in their lives, just the Islamic identity and name, for them, they are moderate Muslims. Why? Because they'll have all sorts of relationships. They find they're open to everything as well, you know what I mean? They open to everything. They go to the nightclubs, they go to the pubs as well, they'll drink as well. So they find with all these type of things, they go with the flow, wherever it may be. Wherever it may be, they go with the flow. So they're moderates, and there are those who want to show themselves as well. Look, we're moderates, isn't it? To go and celebrate the demise of somebody. They show that we are also there, and we are also moderates there as well. Isn't it? There is ways in Deen and Sharia Islam as well. There is ways in Deen and Islam as well. And it's very important that we were to follow those ways in Deen and Islam. Now, for instance, if a person is able to meet the family members of a deceased and console them, then this is what Deen and Sharia allows a person to do. That give them console them, go to them, meet them. If you are not able to do so, then it is pointless. Then it is pointless. I mean, if you are not a Muslim as well, you are allowed to, you cannot make dua for the deceased. Why? Because the deceased now has died without Iman. And because of that, they do not qualify for the virtues of the Akhirah. And that too on the basis of what we are aware of. A person may secretly have been a Muslim who becomes a Muslim, and even not Muslim for that matter, that is something we do not know. But what we know of that, look, this person has not died as a Muslim, there is nothing that we can do now which will benefit them for the Akhirah. So do not pray for them or anything of that nature. But yes, we are allowed to show goodness and kindness towards their family. So even if you have neighbors or friends and that, you can always go and do ta'ziyat. Ta'ziyat is not just for Muslims, ta'ziyat you can do for non-Muslims as well. Where you can give them some words of comfort, to give them comfort. No, nothing to do with regard to dua for the deceased. So if you are able to do that, then fine, do that. And where you are unable to do that, then just leave it to that, isn't it? Then just leave it to that, then why waste money on traveling somewhere where you're not going to be able to meet the family members? Why waste money on putting flowers in a place where it's not going to receive, the family members are not going to receive it either? You're just wasting money on these type of things. So, yeah, moderates. So this was Deen and Shariat, and something I mentioned not long ago as well. People need to understand this as well. When we had the Jubilee as well, I mentioned that as well. That fine, so many Muslims are doing what? They're celebrating the Jubilee. But all those who were celebrating the Jubilee, did they ever make dua for the Queen? Did they ever make dua for Hidayah for the Queen? Isn't it? All sad now. But if you're sad now, then look, you should be sad. But you should be sad, why? That I didn't make enough dua for her. We should be sad. And we should be sad, why? Because she died without Iman. This is what should bring sadness to us. And why her? Because yes, she was somebody who was of position, head of state of the country that we live in. So when somebody is the head of state of the country, we should have made dua for them. If we could not have given da'wah to them, we should have at least made dua for them. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent letters to so many heads of state. Isn't it? Why? Because they were the head of state. The Nabi knew what their position is. And that because they are of that position, if they were to change and they came into Islam, it would have an effect on those under them as well. That's what Nabi said to Hirakal as well. Look, if you do not become a Muslim, then upon you will be Ismul Arisiin. You will then bear the sin of those who are under you. Because you preventing them from also coming into Islam. And not only that, but Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed honor to him as well. When Nabi wrote these letters to them, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this letter is from who? Muhammad Rasulullah ila Azimir Rum. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam acknowledged as well the status that they had here. So Nabi showed the respect to them as well. And this is what the moderation is. This is what Deen and Shariat shows us. That look, this is how you go about it. You don't start doing things which Deen and Shariat has prohibited you, prevented you from doing so. That look, to say R.I.P. This is making dua for a person. This is not permissible at all. That you should not be making dua for a person now, because that is wrong for you. Not that, no, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. The Quran has categorically prohibited from it. So there are boundaries that a person has to follow as well. And yes, we should be sad. Sad on the fact that somebody has died without Iman like anybody else. So we should be sad on that. We should be sad on ourselves that look, did we make enough dua or not? And if we have made dua, then at least we know, okay, look, we tried, we made dua for that individual. We'll get the reward of it. The rest, it was not in the qismat of that individual. Hidayat was not meant for that individual. We should then make more dua for those after them, instead, if we hadn't for those before them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here mentions that the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, their condition was that وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانٌ وَتَسْلِيمًا. When they were put to test, what did it do? It increased them in Iman and their willingness, the submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what a true believer is. When conditions come its way, you do not become weak, you become stronger. Allah Ta'ala says, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبَهُ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and from the believers, there are those men who صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ, who are true to the pledge they vow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَضَى نَحْبَهُ, of them are those who have fulfilled the pledge. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَنْتَظِرُ, and there are those who are still waiting to be martyred. وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا, they have not changed in the least. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says from the believers, there are those who are true. There are those who have had a vow that they will remain firm in the battle until the end. And what did they do? From them there are those who remained firm till death came their way, they became martyred. And there are those who did not become martyred, but who are still firm in their way, that whenever the next opportunity comes, they will remain firm, even if they become martyred. They did not change their way, meaning they're like the munafiqeen, that they ran away from their, no. They were those who made a pledge and they remained firm on their pledge. With regards to this verse, it is general that there are those who, referring to Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, who made a pledge and they remain on that pledge. And there are those who actually proved it and became worthy of it. For instance, in Anas radiallahu ta'ala mentions with regards to his uncle, Anas bin Nazar, after whom he was named. And he says that my uncle Anas, he was absent from the battle of Badr. When the battle of Badr had taken place, at that time it wasn't Nafir Am. Nafir Am means it was not obligatory on all the Sahaba to partake in Badr. It was optional. There wasn't that importance in the sense of that everyone had to, it was not first at that time. And those who did not join, they were not looked down at, etc. So Anas bin Nazar was not in Badr. But he felt distressed about it. So he had taken an oath and he had said that if Allah Ta'ala was to give me another opportunity wherein the Muslims would battle with the mushrikeen, then la yaranna Allahu ma asna'u. That indeed he took an oath, that indeed Allah Ta'ala will see what I can do. Meaning if I have that opportunity, I will show my bravery. So this is the ahd, the promise that he had taken. And then it wasn't a case of just talk and nothing more than that, just talk and no action. But then when the battle of Uhud came, and when the Muslims dispersed, when they were attacked suddenly from behind, from Uhud, and at that time the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, because of the sudden attack that occurred, they left the battlefield and ran away. That's when Sayyidina Anas bin Nazar radiallahu ta'ala, he remained firm. And he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Allah, I exclude myself from that which others are doing. See, forgiveness and exclude myself from that which the others are doing and running away from them. And he remained firm and he passed by. And Sayyidina Sa'd bin Mu'az says that he passed by me and he said to me, Ya Mu'az, Ya Sa'd ibn Mu'az. He says, وَرَبِّ النَّذَرْ الْجَنَّةُ وَرَبِّ النَّذَرْ إِنِّي أَجِدُ رِيحَهَا دُونَ أُحَدٍ. He said to Sayyidina Sa'd bin Mu'az, by the Rabb of Nazar, I can smell the fragrance of Jannat behind Uhud. And Sayyidina Sa'd bin Mu'az says to Nabi Sallallahu that what Nazar did, what Anas bin Nazar did, I can never do. And what was the outcome? Sayyidina Anas Sallallahu mentions that afterwards when all the bodies of those who martyred were found, that Sayyidina Anas bin Nazar radiallahu ta'ala, his body were found in such a condition that it was totally mutilated. That he had over 80 wounds. And that too 80 wounds, sword wounds and arrow wounds and spear wounds on his body. That his body could not be recognized but by the fingertips, and that too his sister Rabi'a bint Nazar, she recognized him through his fingertips. That is how mutilated he became. And he says, Anas says, that we are sure that this verse was revealed with regards to these type of people. That who made this pledge, who took this pledge, La yaranna Allahu ma asna'u, and then didn't they sit back and do nothing. But when Uhud came, went there and did it and showed what they have. So these are those Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala. This is one example which the Sahaba mentioned is fitting to this verse. And there are others as well who are the same. So Allah Ta'ala mentioned there are those who made a pledge and fulfilled it. And there are those who have made that pledge, but every battle they're waiting for that, that when they can fulfill that pledge of theirs. وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. They have not changed in the least. And this is how we should be as well. In wanting to change our lives, to do good for deen, to serve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever virtuous deeds we can do, how we can help and assist humanity. So it's not a case of, I missed out on one opportunity where I could do some charitable work, voluntary work, or some other work of reward in that, and that's it. But the case of, I missed out, next opportunity, do that good deed. I missed out on this salat with Jamaat, intention is next salat I'll get it with Jamaat. I missed out on this neki on this occasion, want to make up for it the next time. And not just to be talk, and say inshallah, but when time comes we don't want to do anything. Further Allah Ta'ala mentioned لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ الصَّادِقِينَ بِصِدْقِهِمْ وَيُعَذِّبَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ إِنْ شَاءَ وَيَتُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. What is the purpose of why does Allah Ta'ala bring about trials and tribulations? So that لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ الصَّادِقِينَ بِصِدْقِهِمْ, so that Allah Ta'ala may reward the truthful ones. وَيُعَذِّبَ الْمُنَافِقِينَ, So the truthful ones for the truthfulness, and punish the hypocrites. In sha'a aw yatuba alayhim, if He wills, or forgive them. If they repent sincerely, inna Allah kana ghafuran rahima. Allah Ta'ala is always most forgiving and most merciful. Which means that trials and hardship is when you know who are the true ones. Like any person, when a person is in good condition, when they are able to help people, then they'll have a lot of friends in that. And now when they may not be able to help people, in be in that position, then you know who the true friends are. A friend who has wealth and he spends that on his friends, so he'll have a lot of friends. Look, he'll spend on you, he'll take you out, and he'll do this for you, and he'll do that for you. And now when he's unable to do so, then everybody's gone from there, and nobody wants to know then as well. Isn't it? And this is the case all the time. That's when you know who are really there for you at time of hardship and difficulty. You know? And when it's your turn, put it that way, that's when you know. You might be there for everybody else when it's their difficult time, when hardship comes upon them. But then when it's your turn, that's when you really know who is really there for me, who is there for us or not. So these hardship and difficulties, Allah says, that is when you know who are the sadiqeen bi sidqihim, who are the truthful ones. That's why Allah brings these type of tests to differentiate between the two. وَرَدَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِغَيْظِهِمْ لَمْ يَنَالُوا خَيْرًا وَكَفَى اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْقِتَالَ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ قَوِيًّا عَزِيزًا. Allah Ta'ala says at the end of the battle, Allah returned the disbelievers with their fury, meaning that Allah Ta'ala returned them to Makkah, لَمْ يَنَالُوا خَيْرًا, without them achieving any good. And this is exactly what happened. That their condition was such, Allah Ta'ala returned them. There was no battle took place in Ahzaab after all. After the siege took place, they went back and they returned in a condition without anything at all, without any gain. وَكَفَى اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْقِتَالَ. And Allah Ta'ala says, Allah suffices for the believers in battle, meaning causing them to defeat them. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ قَوِيًّا عَزِيزًا. Indeed, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is omnipotent and the mighty. وَأَنزَلَ الَّذِينَ ظَاهَرُوهُمْ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ مِنْ سِيَاسِيهِمْ وَقَذَفَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الرُّعْبَ فَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ وَتَأْسِرُونَ فَرِيقًا. Here in the next verse, Allah Ta'ala refers towards the Banu Qurayza. Here specifically Allah Ta'ala refers towards Banu Qurayza, that He, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, made those many people of the book, referring towards the Banu Qurayza, the Banu Nazir, specific Banu Qurayza. That's why He says, مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. Min siyasihim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who assists, وَقَذَفَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الرُّعْبَ وَأَنزَلَ الَّذِينَ ظَاهَرُوهُم, meaning those who assisted them, who combined with the armies, who had descended from, min siyasihim, descend from their fortresses. Siyasi means fortress, because they had their forts that they had around Madinah Munawwara. وَقَذَفَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمُ الرُّعْبَ, and Allah Ta'ala cast fear in their hearts. فَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ وَتَأْسِرُونَ فَرِيقًا. You execute a party of them and take another party as prisoners. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala then did what? And this happened to the entire army as well. That Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala sent the wind, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala uprooted their tents, and due to which the fight did not take place. But what had happened is that they feared the Muslims and they retreated. And the Banu Qurayza as well. At the end, when the Muslims laid siege to them after the battle of 26 days, then what happened? They were caused to surrender. وَقَذَفَ فِي قُلُوبِهُمُ الرُّعْبَ. Allah Ta'ala cast fear in their hearts, by which they then surrendered. And then when the fate of them was decided by Sayyidina Sa'd bin Mu'adh radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that's when Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says that what did you do? تَقْتُلُونَ فَرِيقًا تَقْتُلُونَ, meaning those who were soldiers, able-bodied, they were executed. And وَتَأْسِرُونَ فَرِيقًا, the women and children and those who were not actually soldiers, they were taken as prisoners. When Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentions وَأَوْرَثَكُمْ أَرْضَهُمْ وَدِيَارَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم, after this, them Allah says Allah made you successors to their land, وَدِيَارَهُمْ, and their homes, وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ, and their wealth, وَأَرْضًا لَمْ تَطَئُوهَا, and land that you have not set foot upon as yet, referring towards the later conquest of Khaybar, and it also refers towards the conquest of the Roman and Persian empires. The Muslims had not reached there yet, but Allah Ta'ala is already predicting that these are those lands that you will also then take succession of. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرًا. Allah Ta'ala has power over all things. So here in this ruku, Allah Ta'ala then completes the mention of the Banu Qurayza as well. And also the outcome with regard to the Ahzaab, of how Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had created, inculcated fear in the hearts of them. As Nabi Kareem himself at Ahzaab, because the whole army was there, Nabi said, La ilaha illallah wahdahu, sadaqa wa'dahu, wa nasara abdahu, wa azza junuduhu, wa hazim al-ahzab wahdahu, wa la shay'a ba'dahu. Nabi Kareem mentioned the La ilaha illallah wahdahu. There is none worthy of worship but the one who is one. Who sadaqa wa'dahu, who fulfilled his promise to the believers. And when Nasra Abduhu, he assisted his servant, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Allah Ta'ala has assisted me here. And Allah Ta'ala strengthened the might of the Muslims, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala himself is the one who defeated the Ahzab, the armies. Because Allah Ta'ala is the one who put fear into their hearts. Due to which then, there was nothing thereafter, nothing happened thereafter. They were unable to breach and enter in Medina Munawwara and battle with the believers. Allah Ta'ala grant us all the understanding, and Allah grant us all steadfastness in such form of strong iman, and especially at times of hardship and difficulty. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.